Welcome to Empowering Humanity. I'm your host, Amy Kardashian, not Kardashian. Today we are going to talk about how music can take you on a journey when you're watching a movie. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Empowering Humanity Show with Amy Kardashian, where you can find inspiration, education, healing, peace, and hope. Today's guest, rising star Rey Fernandez Jr., film, TV, and video game music composer. And now, let's welcome Amy and her guest.
Rey Fernandez Jr. is a Cuban-American film and video game composer, orchestrator, and music producer, a rising star in the industry. Rey has taken masterclasses with very well-established composers and orchestrators in Hollywood such as Norman Ludwig and Conrad Pope. He furthered his music education at the prestigious institution Berklee College of Music. Rey has collaborated as a film composer and music producer for different films, for film director and screenwriter Me L. Miller for the film The Hastings, Canonize Me, No Time to Change My Mind, with producer, actor, and model William J. Jackson. He owns a music production company, Rey Fernandez & Sons, with Grammy and Emmy winner and mixing engineer Philip Coloti. He has done the music for different video games, such as Space Front and the survival game Day of Dragons. His score for the movie The Denied gave him a nomination for Best Music in the London International Film Festival. His music has been performed and recorded in very recognized orchestras, such as the Moscow Bowtie and the Budapest Scoring Orchestra in Europe. More information about Rey Fernandez Jr. can be found on his website www.reyfernandezjr.com.
Well, welcome, Rey.
Hey, how you doing?
Nice to have you, rising
Thank
star.
you so much for having me here and for everybody here welcoming me.
Yeah, this is a really treat to have you sitting next to you, knowing that you're rising star. Because in my eyes, when I heard your music, I was so inspired, knowing especially you're a young man, and it just there is like a soul in you that tells me you're an old soul, because you know the new generation, God bless them and everything, but you just bring on something different, something unique. So, but before we dive in the topic today, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, where you came from, a little bit about your story, and then we'll dive into this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here.
It's my pleasure.
Tremendous pleasure. I was born in Cuba. My parents were both musicians. My mom's a violinist. She works in an orchestra. And my dad is a writer, a pianist, and a composer as well. I grew up in Mexico, where I was part of Conservatory of Music. And eventually I came to the United States when I was 18. I started studying audio engineering and eventually transitioned into music composition. I'm a self-taught composer, but I have had many great mentors in music.
Can you give us their names?
Sure. Well, my first mentor was Narciso Valdes. He was a great musician. Then I took a couple of master classes with Conrad Pope and Norman Ludwig. They're currently big Hollywood orchestrators and composers. So I furthered my education in Berklee College of Music, which is a school of, it's well known for film scoring and composition. So that's how I got into this.
And are you still, I think you're still going to the master degree?
Yeah, well, I've been, taking some credits, and sometimes I have to stop because I have some projects. So it's an ongoing process.
But is it something do you think just you have this because you grew up with your family that they're musicians, or you have this like a natural? Because I don't know if you can give this to somebody.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I have never taken composition classes with my dad, which is a composer. It was just something that I fell in love with, listening to great film composers out there, John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith. These are big names, but I just fall in love with it, and I took a class while I was doing my bachelor's degree, and it was in film music. And the professor there, he was specifically mentioning how music can impact what we're watching on the screen, and we were given so many examples, and that caught my attention. And I started, buying programs to write music and learning how to do it, taking tutorials on YouTube and all that. But it was a very, it was not the common way you learn music composition for film, especially when you have parents that are musicians, I think it was just part of me.
Just something from
something from within.
When I listen to your music, that's exactly what I feel. I feel like you've been here before somehow, and then you're bringing that talent, to us again. It's like beautiful music you have. Really, very inspiring to see that in a young man to have that passion in this kind of music. It's like you could feel the power in it, really. Okay, so I want to ask you, what makes it difference from one composer to another one? What is the difference between those two?
Well, I would say that composers have something sort of like a DNA, like a music DNA, and music, it's part of the universe. It's part of, it's there. And every composer, through inspiration, speaks. It's a language. And every composer has something to say.
It's international language, right?
Exactly, it's an international language. And I feel like music, it's a great way to express yourself. And I wouldn't say that there's no great or bad music. It's just a matter of taste, but it's a language.
So when you create the music, you have to live the story or the imagination. So you have to have that kind of imagination.
Correct.
How do you work with? I know you've done some games and movies and TVs, and how do you take a story? What do you do when somebody tells you, okay, this is the film and this is the script and this is, how do you work with all that? How how that works?
Correct. So I will say that the first task as a film composer is, how do you tell the story of the film through music? And so the composer has to do a preliminary work, and he has to do a research on, what's the genre of the film, what has worked before in this genre, if it's comedy, if it's a suspense, a horror, or a police film, what has worked before in that genre, and then the composer will use these elements on the film. And I would say that it's very important for the composer to have communication with the director and the producer and the screenwriter, because you want to get an aspect of what are they trying to say in this film? What is the message that the audience needs to get from the film? And so the composer has to create the music as a part of that final, we'll say, outcome.
Yeah.
It's an outcome. You're trying to achieve something. So there's a lot of work and there's a lot of research that the composer has to do before even getting into the inspirational part and what notes to write.
Wow. So this is, for example, in how I look at the music. I think a movie could have a great story, great director, but if the music doesn't match the story, it doesn't take me there. I just, sometimes I watch the movie with my husband. I tell him, this movie was great directed, great story, but the music, it just didn't take me there. It's something off, something doesn't flow.
Okay.
And that's where I think talent comes in, because you really need to focus on the message, and then you have to deliver the message. Now, directors could be easier for them because they know what they're directing, what the story is. But for you to take the words and explain it through music, so that's a little bit challenging.
It is very challenging indeed. And you have to have in consideration that in film music, you have specific points that you need to address.
For example?
Well, there's something called cues in film music, and composers, we get these cues and we have a specific timing to write these cues. So everything has to match, everything has to sync to picture. So you're not only focusing on the artistic part of the film music itself, but also that it has to match the picture, that you have to address those moments. If maybe someone fall, or someone shot someone, or there's a character flying away, you have to address those points. So
I saw that in your music. There is I saw the characters with the game that you did, and then as they move, you could feel that music's changing, and sometimes it goes up, and sometimes
correct.
It's really good.
Correct.
Really good.
So in a way, we could say that music is like a character in film. That's how I see it.
It plays a big role. Music. I don't think people realize, not all of people, but realize how important music could be in the film.
Exactly.
Because it's hidden,
important. It's very important.
It's very, very important.
It's very.
And to find the right one. So we want you to do my film, right?
That will be a great honor for me
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah.
Your story has inspired me.
Thank
so
you.
I'm looking
Thank
forward
you.
for it.
I know you told me, that, when I sent you my book, and I told my husband, I said, I don't know why, from just seeing your picture, I said, I have feeling that he's going to read it, and he's going to start taking some notes what type of music he's going to put in. And sure enough, when we had the meeting, you said, I was reading your book and I was taking notes. I can't believe this has happened. Like, I think this is where you sink in and you say, okay, I was reading this and I lived it, I felt it, even though you didn't live it. And I think that's what makes a difference between, different composers by really living, not for a job, is for really believing it and living it.
Yes, and I think that's when the whole producer, composer, director relationship comes into place, because when I work with someone, I see them as I get into the project. I put all my being into it.
Because you need to read the script, understand it, and deal with all this. Your job is, the screenwriter could just deal maybe with the director, but you have to deal with screenwriter, director, and everyone.
Yes.
Combined.
Yes.
Your job is big.
Yes.
It's a
And
huge
also,
pressure.
we could add that the composer has to be in the process of the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. From my point of view, I think it's very important, from reading the script to maybe visiting the sets to watching the characters. It's inspirational for the composer. He can start getting ideas from there. And then in the post-production, when it comes to the dubbing session, where like you have the dialogue, you have the sound effects and the music combined, the composer, for me, I think he has to be there and checking the levels and making sure that the music is creating the impact that needs to be.
The impact. See, look at that. I mean, this has come natural when you talk about the impact. It's the thing, you could feel it. Like, I'm not going to just throw anything in there.
Yes.
Yeah, this is it's just something comes, talent. I would say talent. You have a talent. You have a very, very special talent.
Thank
and
you.
it's a blessing really to just be sitting next to you here.
It's
really.
my pleasure sitting
Yeah.
next to you and to this beautiful audience here.
Absolutely. Now, what else can you tell us? Like secrets that we don't know, what happened behind the scene and all that?
Oh, wow. Well, I
Right.
could tell you this, it can be very stressful because in the movie industry we have deadlines, and you know, the composer doesn't get all the credit. Of course, we have teams, we have people that work with us, we have music editors, we have scoring engineers, we have orchestrators, we have people doing additional music sometimes, and so it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, but I see it kind of like, you know, when you have a baby, and you know, I'm a man, but you know this. You have a baby, it's painful, but once you have the baby, you have a bless.
Yeah.
So that's how I see it every time I write music, because it can be painful, but once you have the music, once you have the musicians playing your music, it's a wonderful, wonderful experience.
It's the feeling, and then to see it sinking in right with the words, and then the feeling that you're giving us, you know.
The underscoring of it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just amazing how music can improve so much.
So, you know, we never think about this. We watch movie, we never think about how important and how much work, at least for someone is not in the music industry or a movie industry. We watch a movie, but we don't think about the important and how many teams you have to even bring that to the table. Now, the director have the actresses and have the producers and everything. We don't think that you have a huge team. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, for example, sometimes the composer has to write so much music that he doesn't have enough time to make the orchestrations himself. And the orchestrations is when you take one melody and then you distribute the melody into different instruments of the orchestra. And of course, nowadays we have a different approach to scoring a picture. We have synthesizers, but mainly orchestral, it's when it gets challenging because there's a lot of music to be written. So, for example, orchestrators, they take your music and then they start using these melodies, the harmony, the aspects of the music composition, and assigning it to different instruments. Then you have the music copies, for example, and they will, once the orchestration is done, they will take all those pages of music written for the orchestra, and they will make the parts for the musicians. So we're talking about hundreds of pages. Think about the orchestra itself. Sometimes you have 100-piece orchestra, so you're dealing with people.
Many people.
Many people.
I don't know, any of you here thought that many people could be involved? I mean, maybe we think about it, but not deeply, right? We don't think deeply how much it would take and how long it would take to put something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And you also have the scoring mixer. After the session is recorded, he will get the tracks from the mixing session, and he needs to mix it. He needs to fix if there's a mistake, or if you want more of this, more of the string section than the brass section. It's a lot of work. It's exciting.
It's exciting
I
work,
enjoy
right?
every part of it because you know, as a composer, I see myself also as a kind of like I wouldn't say manager, but it's just supervising everything. It's just fascinating.
So you're not only just creating.
Yes.
You're gonna have to make sure everyone have the right notes and doing the right thing to deliver. So
it's a family. That's how I see it. It's a family.
Wow.
Yes.
But it starts with you. Starts with your creation.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is very fascinating. You know, to talk about this. Something like I said again, we don't really bring it to light. We don't talk about it. Not many people, you know.
Yes.
Pay attention to that much. What an inspiration you are, really, and I can't wait to see more of work. Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
In 10 years from now, well, I see myself successful.
You're already successful. You're already a star. You need to earn it.
You know, working, doing the music for many films, but also, you know, inspiring people and helping others, you know, because at the end it's all about what you can do for other people, how you can move people, you know, because as a composer, you're thinking about, okay, what are people are going to think about my music? Are they going to like it? So those things, they always those questions are going through my mind. So I'm just hopeful that people are gonna love my music, they're gonna feel inspired by it, and it's just gonna touch people's heart.
And you're very humbled. Here you go. I must say that. I must say that, but it's something to develop, and then something else to have the heart and to have the attitude. And to have the humbleness that you have. That's another thing. Where did you get that from?
Well, I would say my parents.
Yeah.
They always keep me humble, because when you look at the greatest composers in history, Mozart, Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, all these great classical composers, and even in the film industry, we have an amazing living composer, John Williams, who has done so many beautiful scores. You just have to stay humble, because there's so much to learn.
So much to learn.
So much to learn. And in my career, you're always learning.
You're always growing.
Always growing. Yes.
That's beautiful. So give us a little bit. How can the music can carry us throughout the movie?
Correct.
Yeah, give us a little bit, because we have a next segment, and we're gonna talk more deeply about the subject.
Okay, so for example, I would say that themes in film, it's a very big deal, and there's something called leitmotif, and leitmotif is it's a small motif, it's a small melody that it's attached to a character, or is attached to it could be a place, and every time we hear that leitmotif, we will remember that character. I could give you an example in Star Wars, when Darth Vader, and I don't know if anybody knows what's Star Wars fans, when Darth Vader comes into picture, you can listen to John Williams' music for Darth Vader's, and you already know that that's attached to the character. So in a way, this leitmotif, these melodies that are associated with something or someone, they make a huge impact in movies, huge impact. And you can take that out of the aspect of the film itself and then put it in the concert, and people, they will go crazy, because they just know that once they listen to it, nostalgia comes in. I remember when I was in my teens, or I was remembering the 80s, and this is bringing me back to those times. So that's another great power of music in film.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about music and how music can heal you, and the music, it's a universal language. We listen to music, and everywhere basically we listen to music. But when we watch a movie, it's a little bit different, because it's not just you're singing and then you're just playing the music. You're giving us a story.
Yes.
You're making us live through it, and when we look at, like you said, we look at one character, and that when that character show up, we match it with the music. We remember like $60 million man, they used to that, the sound and the music, I still remember it. So as soon as you hear the music, you remember the character.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what you do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna do another segment, because I want to learn more from you.
Okay.
And I'm really blessing, like I said, not only just to bring someone who's rising star, to have someone who's very talented. On top of that, to have a person who thinks how you're gonna help others, how you're gonna make a difference in the world, and that means a lot to me. So I'm so happy to have you part of my team, and in moving forward, see what we can do for the movie to have you.
Absolutely.
Because it's really that will mean a lot to me. So
the honor is mine.
We're gonna come back. So this is the first segment.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed this segment as much as I did. I don't know. I'm sitting next to Rey, and you just feel the love. You feel the human in him. You feel even the music. You feel the talent. You feel like he's just a person who not just deliver a story. He tells the story, and it's just so amazing if you check him out and hear his music. We are going to have a next segment, and the next segment we're going to dive in further and deeper into this conversation. So we'll see you next on the next segment.
If you would like to be part of the studio audience or would like to be involved, please visit EmpoweringHumanityTV.com. Sponsored by The Negotiator Mind, shifts your perspective on life. Red Valley Media Group and the Women's Federation for World Peace at WFWP.US.